Start. The appointment of an assistant minister for the Republic is a first in Australian history and has reignited the Republic debate. Now, there's broad agreement for constitutional reform and recognising Indigenous Australians in a preamble and a voice to Parliament, which is likely to be a priority during the next 3 years if we can read anything into the Albanese government's rhetoric. If successful, the move towards achieving Republic status will be next. But the challenges posed by Section 128 of the Constitution regarding any changes to be made are well known. Lessons learned from the failed attempt in 1999 will need to serve as a guide to achieve a positive outcome this time. And joining me today to discuss the possibility of a move to exploring becoming a republic is the Informer's political and social affairs reporter, Anka Sahin, all the way from Turkey. Afternoon, Anka.
Hi, Michael. Nice to be with you again.
Likewise. Now, Republican. Yes, no, we've got some good examples from around the world. We've seen over, I think it's 50 countries move to become a republic in their own right. Should Australia do it? And what hurdles are there?
Well, look, the debate over the republic goes many decades, goes back many decades in Australia. In fact, the origins of it can be traced to even before the Federation. And over the years, of course, the debate has, gone through various forms. There was a referendum held in 1999 after extensive consultations, and that referendum was not successful, leading to this lull of 20 plus years, and now we're seeing the question coming up again, not just because we have a new government, and of course, as you said, for the first time, an assistant minister for the Republic, which really should not come as a surprise, given that working towards the Republic, or a Republic, an Australian Republic, has been official policy of the ALP since 1991. In fact, I would have thought that not having a minister of this sort in the previous Labor government between 2007 and 13, and no steps taken towards perhaps another referendum during that time would be seen as being more of a surprising thing than having that as a sort of an objective in this term of government. So I think there's even at the time of the 1999 referendum, there was broad agreement across the political spectrum, I would say, on the need to become a republic. And in my view, I see it as a historical inevitability. I see it as something that will eventually happen, regardless of what happens with the outcome of a second referendum. It's a process. It's a historical process. It's going in that direction. If we only have to look at the Commonwealth countries that have gone in that direction since the end of the Second World War, and we can see that that is where things are heading. Whether or not the British keep the crown and the monarchy in place, that's a matter for them. But for countries in the Commonwealth who still have the British monarch as the head of state, that day of reckoning will come sooner or later, and Australia is no exception.
Yeah. Now, the polling shows overwhelming support for Australia becoming a republic. And as recently as, I think it was 2018, Malcolm Turnbull raised the possibility of a plebiscite. I think it was on Australia Day, but it never got up. Now, with regards to the 1999 referendum, some would say that it was doomed to fail, and we fairly sure that John Howard is a staunch monarchist, and it basically fell over because of the method of selection. It was doomed to fail before it started. Australians don't like being told that the government is going to pick the head of state. That was the stumbling block, wasn't it, Anchor?
It certainly was. And yes, the way the question was formulated was too restrictive, and it sought to impose on the people. In fact, what it actually tried to do was to enshrine in the Constitution, and we know how difficult the Constitution is to change in Australia. We need a double majority across all the 6 states and countrywide. And that's not impossible. So it's not a 2/3 majority; it's a 50% majority, but it's still not an easy task. So what the referendum in 1999 tried to do was to impose on the Australian people to enshrine in the Constitution the election of a head of state by 2/3 majority in the Parliament, and given that it's so hard to change once it's in place, that's what was going to be in the Constitution for the foreseeable future. And that's not a method that most Australians were happy with. And in fact, if you look at the results and the public sentiment, as somebody who doesn't know the Australian context, would look at those results in 1999, look at the public polls and opinion polls and different ways of looking at public sentiment, and the actual outcome of the referendum, which was an overwhelming no, they would be surprised. They wouldn't be able to understand how that no response got up to 65-68% support, with so much support for a republic otherwise. But it was that imposition. So in my view, any future referendum, not just on the Republic, but also on Indigenous recognition, should be kept as simple as possible. And in fact, I would be in favor of not even having a yes/no answer. Yes/no answers themselves are problematic in the context of referenda. If you look globally, yes answers tend to win most of the time. And yes, we know that didn't happen in 1999, but there were specific reasons why that did not happen, because of that imposition or the impression of an imposition. So the yes answer tends to win most of the time. So that you could say that the North side potentially has an unfair disadvantage. So instead of having a yes/no answer, people could be presented with 2 very simple propositions: either to keep the constitutional monarchy with the present Queen and her descendants as Australia's head of state, or to become a constitutional republic with an elected Australian head of state, and to present these 2 options to the people so that they can choose between the 2. It's not a yes/no; is it this one or this one? And they have the option to choose. And once if it goes the way of the Republic, if the majority of the people across the 6 states and countrywide decide that we want an Australian head of state, elected Australian head of state, then the rest of it can be codified in a legislation, in an act of parliament, the exact process by which that is to be achieved. But I think in principle, yes,